Okay, so let's go in demographics. And so we'll go with the most um, prevalent demographic about our young brothers between the ages of now 18, but 19 when I was there, 19, and let's say 19 to 25 years old. 19 to 25-year-old Bethelites are usually brand new. When you come in, you're a new boy. They consider you a new boy. Um, they don't really give you a whole lot of respect. You have to prove yourself. There's a lot of that. You are college age, so just put college age into a college-like facility and think about some of the things that would happen. That is why they always talk about pornography and they always talk about, touching yourself, all that kind of stuff. Because horny, horny is what they are, and so they tend to do that. They're also messy, like physically messy. So when they are put in a low seniority building all together, it stinks, it's dirty, and they're constantly being counseled about cleaning up after themselves. So yeah, that was a thing. Thankfully, I had a couple of years seniority before I started Bethel. I was in a nicer room, and I had just one roommate. Some of those rooms you had four guys to a room. Yeah, that was a mess. And yeah, so you had those type of uh, I don't want to call them boys; they were young men who came in. But these are guys that just sacrificed a whole lot of things. They were there, they're college age, but they never been in college. So they on cloud nine because they just accomplished a major goal. They just got to come to Bethel, and I'm talking mostly Brooklyn right now because that's my that where I spent the most of my Bethel life was in Brooklyn. So that's how we felt. Um, I I spent from age of 20 to 23 there. So that's full time Bethel. So that was my category of guys. Um, and it was a lot of stuff. I mean, there was a lot of. We're gonna get into altercations after we get done with the people I think that's the natural progression of things. Um, so that was that demographic. Then you had your 25 to let's say 25 to 40-year olds. Because when you're 25 in the organization, they try to start giving you more responsibilities. So you kind of have to act older than you are. Um, those are more serious brothers. A lot of them had a little bit more seniority. They've been there a while, um, and they kind of had that like big brother type, not the bad big brother, but like they wanted to like mentor. They actually would have you start mentoring some of the younger brothers and looking out for the younger brothers, making sure that you were okay. They wanted you to have this like kind of big brother mentality, like your brother's keeper type thing. Um, they didn't want you to just leave them be. They didn't want you bullying anybody. There was bullying, there was hazing. Now the hazing that we had was nothing compared to the hazing that they had back in the day. We heard stories of when they really were hazing back in the day in like the 70s. That was like some serious college hazing, but they didn't. Hazing was not allowed. Officially, was not allowed. Um, so we could only do so much of that. But naturally, you're gonna have some hazing there. Um, some of the boys came from rural areas. They were not used to the city. They were having a hard time with that. They were homesick. Homesickness was real. This is your first time away from home. A lot of times you weren't able to do much. So that the 25 to 30-year olds, 25 to 40-year olds, they really try to um, help them out. And then this is like single or married brothers. Uh, a lot of times 25 to 40-year olds were on their first wife. Not sorry, not their first wife, but like they had just got married. um, and so those guys they were really just trying to help their wives along in Bethel service, and 25 to 40-year-old people there really dealt well with the younger brothers, single brothers, and so um, that's that demographic of people, and these are just like normal workers, nothing major there. 40 to 50-year olds, um, I would say they were a little bit more like they were a lot more serious, kind of kept to themselves, mostly were married, and if they were single, usually it's because they were either widowers or maybe even divorced, meaning divorced from a marriage before they came to Bethel. Because one of the things was if you were in a relationship at Bethel and your relationship broke up and you were the husband, then you had to leave Bethel. Meaning you were not the perpetrating adulterer, you were the victim of the adulterer. The rule was you had to leave. Now, if it was the other way around and you were the sister who was the victim of the adulterer who was the husband, then the husband would have to leave Bethel and the sister would have the option to stay at Bethel. Um, yeah, we're gonna get into Bethel rules. That's gonna be a whole other segment in a second. So then you had your 50-year-old plus people at Bethel. Those people were rarer. They were rarer than um, obviously the younger ones. Bethel didn't like to keep a whole lot of old people. Um, but if you stuck around long enough and you were an older Bethelite, boy, did you have the life. They took care of you for real. If you didn't have any kids or nowhere to go, they were going to take care of you. They were not just going to cast you off, put you on somebody's um, couch or whatever. Just going to dispel that. They were going to take care of you. And you could do what you want. You can get away with anything. Say what you want, do what you want. We had older sisters who were, kind of going senile, and they were just walking around Bethel, just like terrorizing people all day. And when they get that old, they don't care about what they say, so they just say whatever they want. And so they were actually a lot of fun. But I will tell you what, they did not care about anybody's Bethel rules. They were real down to earth. They would talk back to people. They did not. After morning worship, they'd be like, "I'm not listening to that," or like they didn't care. Um, they were interesting people. Uh, so yeah, anybody older than that, um, typically they were sickly. Again, they were being taken care of, and yeah, nothing too crazy that way. Um, you know, yes, there were some that did have to leave, um, but they weren't so heartless, and they weren't so heartless, so as to say, well, you're older now, you got to go. Um, no, they did make sure that you were going to be placed somewhere safe, at least. Maybe they would help you try to see if you had any secular work history that you might be able to benefit a little bit from the Social Security. But no, you didn't have any severance package, no retirement. That definitely didn't happen. So yeah, you were out there, but they were at least gonna make sure you were safe. A lot of times, what they would do is they would send you to put you on like an infirm special pioneer status, put you in a kingdom hall somewhere that had an apartment on it. If you were that old, but again, they would determine whether or not they could take care of you, how best they could take care of you, and it was also based on your, um, not necessarily seniority, because you would have a lot by then, but basically based on who you were and how that was. A lot of the older ones were single sisters or widowed sisters. Um, Obviously, if you were a widow of the governing body member, then you would be taken care of. You'd be set. You're set for life. Anybody else though, kind of on the fence. So yeah, you were sacrificing your entire life away. Um, that's just how that